right, folks, we're going to get this meeting started. This time I'd like to call the April 21st, 2022 regular meeting of Common Council City Plaster to order. It is now 5:03 p.m. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Garland, will you please conduct a roll call?
Mayor Rosenquist.
Here.
Councillor Canales. Councillor Kelly.
Here.
Councillor Gibbs.
Here.
Councillor Talon.
Here.
Councillor Bob.
Here.
Councillor Moore.
Here. All councilors have received a copy of the minutes of the April 7th, 2022 regular meeting. If there are no additions, deletions, or corrections, I'll now entertain a motion to accept those minutes as presented. Councillor Bob, second by Councillor Canales. Oh, geez. Councillor Gibbs. Sorry, confuse you two. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. I will now recognize those in the audience who wish to share their thoughts and concerns with the council on any topic. Please come to the podium to be acknowledged. When called upon, we ask that you please state your legal name and address for the record. And in accordance with the organizational rules of order, all speakers will be given 5 minutes to address the council. Please.
My name is Michelle Armstrong. I live in Ward 1. And I'm here to say how proud and pleased I am that the resolution that you see 782 on the agenda today is up for a vote before the Common Council. Since the original task force was set up to deal with sustainability in 2019, things have happened. We've had COVID, we had a lot going on, but it's always been clear that the city was committed to sustainability in our community. And so it's just so gratifying that we're at the point where we can reinvigorate and reestablish our committee, thanks to the hard work of Councillor Gibbs, who was willing to work with me in order to reform the task force, and Mayor Rosenquist for helping to facilitate the resolution to reestablish it. We have a great group of dedicated volunteers who are willing to put in the work. It's going to be a formidable commitment, but they are passionate about working for the environment and sustainability. And I just am thrilled that we have the opportunity to cooperate and collaborate with the city to make Plattsburgh a climate smart community, a clean energy community. So I urge you to vote and to support all future actions that come before the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Rochelle.
Good afternoon. My name is Sylvie Beaudreau. I live at 18 Leonard Avenue. And I'd just like to speak to you very briefly about the item on the agenda that regards accepting the report of CNS companies to turn Margaret Street partially into a one-way street. And I simply wanted to, because I'm a historian with an interest in local history, I did some research on past initiatives to change the traffic flow of our downtown thoroughfare, and here's an article from 1990. So sometime in the 1980s, they turned Margaret Street. They experimented with turning it into a one-way street. And in 1989, popular consensus was that it was a failure. And they decided to convert Margaret into a two-way street, but they did it in stages. So they didn't reconvert it instantaneously. They tried doing it section by section. In other words, it was a one-way, and they converted the section from Cornelia to Broad into a two-way, and then gradually they converted the whole thing into a two-way street. So the experiment with a one-way street failed, or failed in 1990. So I found lots of articles about this, but just to save time, I'm giving you one copy of it. And this is basically a piece where the city's being congratulated. And here's what it says. It's admirable that the city has chosen to turn downtown's main thoroughfare into a two-way street. For too long, it has been difficult to get to where you want to go in the city center. Traffic in the past has been forced to loop around a maze of one-way streets to get to the shopping district. And when there are two easy access malls in the town of Plattsburgh, providing already tough competition, it makes sense to try to make it easier for shoppers to get into the inner city. The city should be applauded for the chore that it undertook in late 1989, turning Margaret Street section by section into a two-way street. And then the rest of the article is about how they needed to put clearer signs to make it clear that we were reconverting it back to two-way streets. So my question to the council before they vote on this all-important issue is why, if it failed in the 90s and had to be reconverted back to two ways, are we now considering reverting back to the one-way plan? My sense is that those who don't learn from their mistakes are forced to repeat them, as someone very famous once said. And I wouldn't like to see public resources being devoted to something so expensive that is ultimately going to have to be undone. And I'm not sure why either the city or CNS companies or the committee overseeing this hasn't looked into this before. So I'm submitting this to you because if you do vote positive on this, then at least it's part of the public record that you were aware of the fact that this is not a new idea, it's an old idea that was tried before and didn't succeed. So I thank you all for listening and wish you all well. Thank you.
Anybody else in the audience who wish to speak to council on any
Hi, my name is Karen Duresha from 27.5 Couch Street. And I also would like to speak to the reconstruction project. And my point that I wanted to make was that when the three ideas were presented at the meeting, I had asked the question whether that would be applied, each of those ideas would be applied from Broad Street to Cornelia, and was told that in fact that's the way it would be applied. That was the intention. So when voting, I was voting based on the idea that if we made this a one-way street, or if we made this a two-way street with no parking, that it was going to be from one end to the other. Of course, we can't afford to lose that much parking. I had shared with Councilman Moore an idea of actually just eliminating parking on the section that's now being discussed between Brinkerhoff and Court Street. And I would just like this group and the public to consider that as an option. It would be far less intrusive, not having to change the flow of traffic. It amounts to about 16 parking spots, which I think could easily be absorbed by Arnie Pavone. And it allows for putting bike lanes in that section that would then connect to Court and Brinkerhoff Street, which would give you a loop to the college and back, which is an important contingency of people that need to come downtown. So I would just like that to be considered as well before a decision is made.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi all, my name is Peter Regnier. I'm at 22 Brinkerhoff Street. Tonight we're going to discuss yet another one-way street in the city of Plattsburgh. What fun. I don't think that there's a taxpayer in this city that isn't against forward development. It's been far too long for this city to get out of the it has potential mode and become a regional leader. Part of the problem is I feel as though most of taxpayers in this city are left out of the process by leadership in this room. I mean, let's just take a little quick trip down memory lane. I mean, the whole Durkee Street disaster, give it to an out-of-town developer for $1, give them $4 million to develop, and then have them pay the tax rate that I pay. I have 5 properties in the city of Plattsburgh, 5 of them. The combined school and property tax that they pay on a $24 million property is within a couple thousand of what I pay. And the answer to affordable housing is to have apartments that start at $1,000 downtown. I mean, that's just that's crazy. It's just crazy. And this street, this Margaret Street, Brinkerhoff Street development, I 100% agree that something needs to be done because you can't have century-old infrastructure underneath those streets. But that's a giant dig. There's been no real step-by-step procedure on, well, there's going to be a 9-foot hole in this part of Margaret Street from these dates on. And this plan, and Councilwoman Gibbs said it was, 375 people in the city of 20,000. 42% of people approved this measure, which means 58 don't. They want something else. I don't think those people feel like they're being heard. You know, and the final thing, and I don't know if it's going to be on tonight's agenda, is I find it very suspicious that this taxing of, let's look at today's kids. How many times do we say, good Lord, I wish these kids would get out of that room and stop staring at that phone? I don't know, many times. So kids go out and play football and baseball, and what are they doing? They're getting out. We whine about them being upstairs, locked on their phones, and they're going to get out and play sports. And now you want to tax those teams. And of course, school's on vacation and parents are out of town. It's a great time to bring it up. But I was talking to Andy Lamano, who's a friend of mine and a financial advisor down here, and he guesses that the baseball program I have to pay about $3,500. Now I want to ask you, where's their cash at? What's their money generator to be able to come up with this money? These leagues are wonderful in the fact they're no-cut leagues. You want to play, you get a uniform, you're on the team, which is the greatest thing ever. Because I know when I was in high school, I was good at some things, not so good at other sports. I was cut. When you're a little kid, you're an 8th grader, no matter how bad you are as a player, it doesn't feel good. So these programs allow these kids to have some semblance of pride in themselves, and they're outside playing. And now we're going to make it harder for them to do that. So if you pass that, I think y'all should be ashamed of yourself. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak on the topic on any council or any council on any topic? Oh,
I'm older than you. Plus, I had a double knee replacement, so it takes me a while to get going. Hello, everyone. Nice to see everyone. I'm John Seaton from Plattsburgh, New York. And once again, we're at a juncture of making important decisions for our community. I find it kind of fascinating that we're making major decisions based on a poll of 400 people. It makes me wondering, are you setting a precedent? Because there's enough of a group that wants to make another street, for instance, Cornelia Street or Broad Street, a one-way street. Are those decisions going to be based on a straw poll of 400 people saying, yeah, that's a great idea? It's kind of frustrating because we all want the best thing for our community. We all live here. We all want the best thing. I'm an old enough guy that I remember when Plattsburgh was referred to as the land of one-way streets, because our Canadian friends would come down and they would be lost. They'd make a wrong turn and they couldn't get back to where they wanted to be. And it seems we're heading down a path that we've already been down and we know how it ends. It almost seems we're taking a lot of good money and just kind of flushing it down the toilet, and we're just on a hope and a prayer. Downtown is an interesting place. I've been trying to redevelop it for 40 years. And, you know, with COVID and everything else, downtown's still hanging on by a thread. A lot of businesses have left. And geez, the last thing we want to do is to put another nail in the coffin of people's success to thrive in downtown. So I don't think decisions should be made on that way. It seems it's very hastily done. I think if more time was put into it, could be a better thoughtful plan. Two-way streets are there for a reason. And decisions have been made in the past that were talked about earlier that it didn't work. And so that brings us now. The money should be used for something that's more sustainable for our community. And I know that, Caitlin, you had mentioned that some people have been reaching out to you, and I'm sure there are. But there's also people in the community that 58% said one-way doesn't seem to make much sense. So I know once again, we're at a point of making an important decision, and hopefully it'll be the right one, and maybe even back it up a little bit. You know, the last big development plan that ended up in the parking lot seemed that was a big giveaway. And so we're hopeful that now this can take a little time, be more thoughtful about it, and that we end up what we deserve, a mechanism to make downtown thrive and not be the last nail in the coffin. Thanks.
Dave Merkel, lifelong resident of Plattsburgh. John said some of what I wanted to say regarding the Margaret Street proposal to change it to one-way. I'll just tell you that one-way is not the way. 58% of people decided that in that poll, that survey that was taken by your engineers. I spoke at this last meeting, so I won't beat that part anymore, but I want to talk about the parking special assessment district. I probably was not reading as well as I should, and it recently came to my attention that over $1 million of indebtedness was just added to the special assessment district again. And it's like we're a little cash cowboy here for you councilors. Fund it, dump it into that, and force a minority of taxpayers in the city to pay for it, to repay it. I think we're on our third go around. I know we retired the debt definitely once, most likely twice, and now we're on the third go around. I don't think it was designed to be that way. Originally, it was to pay off the debt. It's pretty much been a present to the city of Plattsburgh, courtesy of the tax-paying properties that are in the special assessment district. I don't know what the debt is now. I'd be interested to know. I know I can find out, but might be interesting if more people knew. Possibly you could get that information out there. I'd like to see the special assessment district abolished. Everything that's in it is for the city as a whole. And since you're going to charge for parking, which I think is a mistake. I sat on the parking committee for a while till I decided it was a sham. I wouldn't do the paid parking. I can't see the parking kiosk meters, whatever they are, holding up. I just look at the informational kiosks we had that sat humming over here on City Hall at the end of the walking path down by the train station. I just don't see it working here. I don't think it's necessary. Right now, back to Margaret Street, there's 5 empty storefronts between Brinkerhoff and Court. I just counted them this afternoon. There was another one that went empty last week that I missed when the people were moving out. But I don't think switching it to one-way is going to work. It didn't work when it was done before. Kind of like diagonal parking. The grindings are still in the street on Court Street from when we tried that. It doesn't work. So with that, I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
Good afternoon. I'm Diana Wardell, Edgewater Estates, Ward 5. And I'm here to discuss just a few moments about the redevelopment of Margaret Street. And many of my neighbors and friends are proponents of returning to a one-way. And yes, I lived here when it was two-way 30 years ago. And I'm very excited and appreciative of, again, some forward-looking vision that the city has at this point to try to return some vibrant life to downtown. We see the restaurants that are especially between that Court Street and Brinkerhoff come alive in the warmer weather, people sitting outside, and especially with more people on bicycles. We're excited that there's a shared roadway plan. I know some of my friends would love to see one side parking only or eliminate parking between Court and Brinkerhoff, just because it's so narrow in there. And that is, again, a safety concern that we all share. Anyone that's walking and biking, when you have two-way traffic and parking on both sides, it's very hazardous to try to walk or cross the street or bicycle. And we really do appreciate, I know my friends wanted me to say that the city has reached out several times for feedback and for surveys and has offered meetings. And, you know, we do appreciate reaching out to the community. So we're here in support of the one-way redevelopment. And, you know, thank you for considering our message today.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Sorry.
You got in there right at the last. minute.
Yeah, thank
Move
you.
on.
I bet you would like to.
No, go for it.
The proposal is exciting. It's vibrant. The fear factor for me as a business that's on Margaret Street is, and as I was talking to Kaylee, was the statement that the man made during the presentation yesterday. And that was a 30%, and that's what he said to the board, 30% reduction in traffic. And Kaylee explained to me, well, that's just because, if I'm correct, you said because people are coming both ways and that lane is gone. But 30% reduction means 30% less possible patrons, 30% less possible people that could see your storefront, 30% less of your cash flow coming into the door. That's the scary part. Matt has done a wonderful job. The committee's done a wonderful job. They've reached out. My question would be, what percentage of that contact that they had were downtown businesses? I know that I would like to have been on it, but I'm working. I know that one of the associates I deal with across the street would allow him to be on it, but he was working. Most of the downtown businesses are tied up. So how many people really participate from the downtown? And that was pretty much it in a nutshell. You know, Councillor Moore might have a very interesting idea of perhaps there could be a test way without majoring in the next year before the construction starts. Much like I think it was John had mentioned, they striped in the diagonal parking. Could we not test for the next year the proposal, but with just striping off the parking lot and just putting up some signs and not investing the money and just see what happens? Or some way to reverse it without being millions and millions of dollars. But otherwise, I'm excited to see Blacksburg grow. And I heard David mention there was 5 stores that were empty in downtown. I can remember when there was 20 stores empty downtown. So I believe downtown Plattsburgh's heading in the right way. And it's a vibrant city. I was looking at a different location and I sat in front of it and I watched different towns. And in an hour and a half I sat there, I watched 5 pedestrians walk down the street. We're opening up a new store on 86 Margaret Street. I sat there for an hour and a half and I watched 75 people walk by the front door. So downtown Plattsburgh's doing very well. And the growth that we're experiencing is there. And I think that this project is a good project. Just the only thing that bothered me was the 30% reduction in traffic flow.
Thank you. Is it anyone else? All right, we're now going to move on to committee reports. Anyone else? Let's just go back to that. Anyone? Okay. We're now going to move on to committee reports. Each standing committee is chaired by a councillor. And I will now call upon that chairperson of each committee, starting with City Operations, Councillor Bob.
So we've got a couple items that we moved forward to this agenda tonight. So item 7.61 through 7.65 all came from us. And otherwise, I also am excited to say that Courtney and I have locked in some bands for 4th of July. So we'll be making that announcement soon. I think it's gonna be a really, really exciting event and we're looking forward to it. So I hope everybody else will too.
Economic development and finance. We had our meeting last week, discussed a number of issues. regarding ClearGov, which we updated council on. Did our monthly reports, of course, as we do every month. And then the number of items that have come through for these projects have come through that committee. Looking for the item numbers of 7.66 through 7.74 are on the agenda for tonight. City Infrastructure, Councilor Moore.
I didn't have anything to report, but I did have a question about, I hadn't seen the street sweepers out as much as what I usually do. Is there something wrong with any of the units, or I just haven't been lucky enough to see?
No,
them?
probably you haven't been lucky enough to see him.
Okay.
We'll put you on one of them. Saw snowplows. Did you see the snowplow? Mike, I asked you a question. Did you see the snowplows?
Oh, yes, I did.
Yeah, okay, good. Yeah. Okay. Oh, goodness. Keep it light, folks, right? All right, Public Safety Councilor Canales is absent. We did talk, that was a pretty heavy, report-heavy meeting. Certainly invite folks here who aren't following city business or don't show up to meetings or can't come to meetings to follow us on Facebook and YouTube, where we record and post these meetings for consumption. These reports are also available on the website prior to the committee, so people can also take a look at those reports. But we did have a number of good discussions at that meeting. I'll now move on to liaison reports. Plattsburgh Public Library, Councilor Chan.
The meeting is next Tuesday, so I don't have anything to report tonight.
Plattsburgh Municipal Lighting Department, Councilor Gibbs.
So item 7.83 is brought forward in collaboration with Bill Tracy, Mike Bissett, and John Ruff to adopt a green fleet and equipment policy. So I want to thank everybody for their feedback and collaboration on that. And that's, basically spawning out of the MLD. Mayor, I did have a question. I did email you about this. I'd like an opportunity to talk about electric rates. How would you like me to go about interacting with Mr. Tracy on that?
As my response was, it would be much better for Bill Tracy to send out a comprehensive report to the council so that everybody has that same information. Subsequent to that, then we can schedule a meeting if there's any additional questions.
Okay,
Yeah.
and will that report coming from him be forthcoming soon? Or?
Yeah, I think he sent it to me this morning. I haven't had a real good chance to review it though.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. Other than that, I have nothing else.
Dean, any staff member reports?
No reports, and from my perspective, no report.
Okay, I'll now entertain a motion to approve the payrolls for various city departments for the week ending April 20th, 2022 in the amount of $503,717.30. Councilor Kelly, second by Councilor Bopp. Roll call.
Councilor Kelly,
Yes.
Councilor Gibbs,
Yes.
Councilor Talon.
Yes.
Councilor Bob,
Yes.
Councilor Moore,
Yes,
Carried. I'll now entertain a motion to approve bills audited by the Common Council for the weeks ending April 22nd, 2022 in the amount of $448,668.85. Councilor Gibbs, sorry? $484,686.85. Councilor Gibbs, second by Councilor Kelly. Roll call.
Councilor Kelly,
Yes.
Councilor Gibbs.
Yes.
Councilor Talon.
Yes.
Councilor Bob,
Yes.
Councilor Moore,
yes,
Carried. Before voting on the following resolutions, I'll note that the majority of these resolutions have been thoroughly discussed by the appropriate committees and department heads. We're now taking action on these items in large part to the recommendation of those committees. Ms. Carlin, will you please read the titles of the resolutions to be acted upon?
Item 7.61, authorize the implementation of the social media policy.
Motion, Councilor Gibbs, second by Councilor Bopp. Discussion? Roll call.
Councilor Kelly,
Yes.
Councilor Gibbs,
Yes.
Councilor Talon.
Yes.
Councilor Bob,
Yes.
Councilor Moore.
yes,
Carried.
Item 7.62, authorize alcohol consumption, authorization for alcohol consumption on city property for CDPH fundraiser.
Motion by Councilor Bopp, second by Councilor Gibbs. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Item 7.63, authorize award of fireworks contract for city events.
Motion, Councilor Kelly, second by Councilor Bopp. Discussion? Roll call.
Councilor Kelly,
Yes.
Councilor Gibbs.
Yes.
Councilor Talon.
Yes.
Councilor Bob,
Yes.
Councilor Moore,
yes,
Carried.
Item 7.64, authorized community engagement coordinator to attend Nikon Community Revitalization Conference.
Motion by Councillor Gibbs, second by Councillor Bob. Discussion. Roll call.
Counselor Kelly,
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs,
Yes.
Counselor Talon.
Yes.
Counselor Bob,
Yes.
Counselor Moore.
Yes.
Carried.
Item 7.65, authorized mayor to attend Nikon Community Revitalization Conference.
Motion by Councillor Gibbs, second by Councillor Bob. Discussion. Roll call.
Counselor Kelly,
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs,
Yes.
Counselor Talon.
Yes.
Counselor Bob,
Yes.
Counselor Moore.
Yes.
Great. Carried.
Item 7.66, acceptance and adoption of final report on reconstruction of Margaret Court Brinkerhoff.
Motion, Councillor Bob, second by Councillor Gibbs. Discussion.
Yes, I have a number of questions regarding this project. I mean, the supporting documents came through last week, which is why I abstained from the vote on Wednesday because I hadn't had a chance to read it. I'm not going to pretend like I'm an expert on this. It was very extensive, but I have a number of questions. And they span from logistics to funding. When I went through this, and I also printed out our capital project that we approved with the budget, I have a number of questions. The total of the project is going to be $10.8 million. So for all intents and purposes, it's an $11 million project. When I go through the capital budget that we approved last year, I see that we have under sanitary sewer, $500,000 for Margaret Street, $500,000 for water from the water fund. Under street resurfacing, we have budgeted $4,500,000, and the document says CHIPS/general. What is the split between the CHIPS and the general fund for that?
It would certainly be dependent on the amount of CHIPS funding that we had for next year. Also, I think it's important to remind council that this is a 2023 project, so it wouldn't be part of 2022 capital projects.
I know, that's what it says here in 2023. That's where I'm getting the numbers, not
Yeah, sure.
2022, 2023.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you don't know what that split will be?
Again, it will be a lot dependent on how much money we have left over for CHIPS remaining in that pool of money. Now, we did get more CHIPS money this year. We'll get more CHIPS money next year, but then we'll just calculate how much money that is against the project.
So we don't know how much that is yet. So the total then is $5,500,000. The document also says that we're going to be taking some money from American Rescue. We're taking money from touring routes.
Yep.
What is the dollar amount assigned to each of those as part of the project?
Again, we will not know that until we actually get a final cost estimate for the project.
So the only
No,
thing.
the estimate is just an estimate, right? And then we come back, we get the engineering report, and then we get an engineer's estimate. After we get after the RFP comes back and the final design, whatever that is adopted. Once that final design comes back, then we get an accurate estimate of what the actual project is going to be.
So I'm not comfortable with this. I mean, almost $11 million, and we're not sure of the source of half that project.
Mind you, this is the same, the procedure for estimating this project, same procedure that we went through estimating Kogan and every other project that we do full depth reconstruction. So it's the same procedure, nothing is different here.
So my concern is when we did the project for Kogan, it was a full depth reconstruction project.
Mhm.
It was a very specific footprint. When this project was originally thought up, I call it the U, that section of Court Margaret Brinkerhoff. I'm completely on board with a full depth reconstruction project being done there because I understand it needs to be done. And then I see the study that expands that project out. You know, I saw the survey. It was really clear to the people who took the survey that there was an opportunity for enhancement. So the project footprint became larger. That to me is different than Kogan. I think envisioning of what Margaret Street could look like, Brinkerhoff Court, Bikeability, I think it's beautiful, but we have to ask the questions about the nitty gritty, about funding, the source, how much it's going to cost. And that's where I have a little bit of heartburn. I have another question.
Sorry, Councilor Gibbs, I do need to clarify that the original scope of this project was exactly what was presented back to council. This is all of Court Street, Olive Brinker, and then the downtown specific areas. That was all originally part of the original project. There was no scope creep outside of the original discussion back in October.
Okay, so, but my point is still the same. The infrastructure component is a necessity. I understand that the other components that are adding additional costs, and I understand it's only, I say only, it's about 3 million more. The largest chunk of that is going to be the big project. I just think it's something worth considering. And that's why I'm asking the question. I do have some other questions as well. In this document, we're using CHIPS money for design costs. Is that normal? Do we normally?
That's typical. We can do that. It's
Yes.
typical.
And do we have any contingency for overruns or inflation? Like, we're saying right now, our estimate is 10.8 million. Do we have an estimate?
Built in.
Contingency of 40%. So what we did, we took a look at the engineering costs on the construction of Margaret Street, Court Brinkerhoff, within the limits that were originally scoped. And based on the drawings that you see in the report, we did it as detailed as we could at this point for conceptual level, how much the construction cost would be to do all that reconstruction, all the utilities, plus the money for the other beautification treatments, which are about the same, depending on, regardless of which of the alternatives would be chosen. And on top of that, we put a 20% contingency.
So is the 10.8 million including the 20% contingency?
Correct.
It is.
Yes.
And that also factors in inflation?
Yes.
I have some other questions about the infrastructure. I mean, I saw the pictures in here about, the pipes. Do we know what water and sewer lines look below the ground? Is there any kind of indication of what the tangled mess is below Market Street? Do we have any pictures of that?
Yeah, we do. Actually, in the report, we have some pictures that were provided to us.
No, I saw those, but I'm talking about like actual water and sewer lines coming out of the businesses and the.
Oh, the laterals, they would all be replaced as well. It would be a complete replacement.
No, I know. Do we know what it looks like right now? I guess that's what I'm asking.
No, I would assume the condition would be as bad as would be in the main trunk lines unless they were replaced at any time, in more modern times, but.
And I believe at some point, Mike, you may have this information. At some point, some of these laterals have been so bad or they have failed to such a point that we've had to tie building to building.
Okay. So that was one of my questions. I wondered if there's some building to building tie-in, which of course will have to be untangled, I'm assuming, when the construction is done.
That's correct.
Okay, so does anybody have an explanation about what is the plan going to be for water and sewer access for businesses and residents during construction? Our restaurants, I'm assuming it is health code law that they have to have running water and they have to have sewer. What is the plan for those businesses while construction is going on for them to be able to stay open and continue? I'm very, very concerned that they would be driven out and not be able to reopen, not be able to recuperate losses. So I'd like to hear what the plan is for them and how to make sure that doesn't happen. And I'm not sure who can answer that.
Yeah, I could take that. The real specific details would be put together during the final design of the project, but with any of these, the strategy would be to build the new water lines and the new sewer lines in a different location offset from the existing ones. So the old systems can stay in place and then you would cut over the new systems and then take the old ones and abandon them. So the amount of time that anyone would be without services would be a very short amount of time when you're doing that cutover, and the property owners would be notified of that. And those kind of actions could be coordinated during times like where night times or weekends or whenever certain businesses or residences would be least impacted. So by using that strategy, you're keeping the old water and sewer lines going right up to the time where you're ready to cut the new ones over.
Okay. Who's going to be overseeing the project? Is that going to be Andrew?
Yes, partially Andrew and partially hired.
And I had some questions about safety. in particular about the discussion about accidents and traffic. Margaret Street is narrow. Everyone knows that. I don't like going down Margaret Street on my bike. My son and I are on our bikes all over the town in the warm weather. But I'm going back to a comment from the audience, and I'm not sure who said it, about Court Street when it was at one point, and I remember this, the angled parking, so you had to come up and then back in. And that's one of the reasons why it was a failure, that it's very nerve-wracking to pull up and pull in when you've got traffic coming from behind. And that's my largest concern about turning Margaret into a one-way, because you would have shared road use with bikes and parking. And if you're going to parallel park, you have to pull up and then pull in. I got stuck in traffic one time on Margaret Street with somebody right on my bumper when I had that happen. I've never done it since. And so I am a little concerned about safety in that regard. And then I also read the accident reports, but I wasn't sure about this, and I'm not sure who can answer this. How many of the accidents in that report are in the project footprint of, and I don't know if anybody knows this, from, let's say, I guess it would be Clinton Street over to Brinkerhoff? Or is that Margaret's, those accident reports, the numbers, is that all of Margaret Street? That's something I don't know.
The accident numbers would be for all of Margaret Street, but we do have in the report diagrams that show at which intersections they occurred, and then in the city blocks in between intersections where those accidents occurred. So we did map them out. And we also looked at the percentages of accidents at each intersection compared to what normally occurs on a typical intersection using statewide statistics.
Mhm.
So it was looked upon in specific areas. So we could see where the majority of those parking incidents were taking place, like in the narrowest section.
And is that current data, or is that from the 2019 study that is referenced in here? There was a 2019 traffic study done, and that's what's in this document. Is there anything updated since then?
Councillor Gibbs,
Oh,
if I could
yes.
interrupt for
Yes.
clarification. If you look at the appendix B, which is your accident diagrams, I can come up real quick, I'll show you that. You'll see all the accidents, and they are from 2018 to 21. You'll see them graphed right here and the type of accident they are.
Yeah,
all
I
throughout the
saw them.
project. Yep.
Mhm.
Just to
wasn't-
clarify.
Yes, I saw those. I just wasn't sure how to read the data. And whether or not that was in specifically the project footprint, or if that was all of Margaret Street. So I was just a little,
But
just wanted the
Just
clarification.
within the primary and secondary study area.
Those are my questions so far.
Well, I have two comments to make before, that would have to be resolved before I would be for this project. One of them is that there would be adequate space for on the sidewalk dining versus on the street dining. The on the street dining is unsafe and on-site. Sooner or later, somebody's gonna plow into one of those things, and it's not gonna be pretty. I unfortunately did not get a chance to go and measure what some of this would look like, but I want to make sure that anybody who wanted to take advantage of having sidewalk dining, even places that don't exist at this time, that they would all be able to fit there. Not convinced that this plan adequately accommodates that. The other thing that I have taken aback by is that we need to, this has happened before, and some of the people commented on it. The one-way street didn't work out. I think we need to have a contingency plan in here where with just merely restriping that we could go back to two-way parking. It's a real possibility that could happen. We need to cover this without having to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars pulling up curbing or trying to redo things. I think that's a very important thing to do. So for me to be get behind this, I would need to see those two items resolved.
Is that feasible? Is it feasible to go into, because right now what we're talking about is we're talking about taking the proposal, sending it out to RFP for bids as is. Is it feasible to design the roadway in such a way that you can pull out a parking lane and replace it with a driving lane with striping?
You mean like in a test condition?
Yeah.
Yes. it could be done.
Or either we test it before we make that final decision on, hey, this is gonna be a one-way, we test it first before we make that final decision. And I think that final decision would have to come at some point after we figure out what that one-way traffic flow looks like, or we get into the design and we say, for this project to work, we would have to design it in such a way that in the future, we could potentially take out a parking lane and restripe for two ways.
Yes, the majority of the design work is really going to be underground with the utilities, the water, the sewer, and the drainage. So, in the meantime, one thing that we would recommend is getting some fresh traffic count data and using some of the time at the beginning of the design phase of the project to test out the one-way operation to see where the traffic flow would be, and then use that information moving forward. If the one-way option continues, that information could then be used for the optimization and timing of the traffic signals throughout the downtown district. And we would definitely use that information moving forward to base the final design on for the
Well, I
documents
think
to
the
go to
prudent
bid.
thing is to put that into the project, because it's a very real possibility. I think you've heard that from some of the people here. If I had a business downtown and you were telling me, you're gonna cut 30% of my business, maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't. I'm all for trying it out. But we need a fallback position. If it doesn't work out, we need to be able to go back to that two-way parking easily, not
The
pulling.
two-way driving.
Yes.
Yeah, without doing a bunch of infrastructure
Yes. A
or
lot of
other
people-
than striping.
A lot of people don't realize how far down curbs go. They're down below the frost line. It's not a matter of, it's not a surface item where you can just pull it out and put a new one in. And like I said, those are my two big concerns, and I would really like to put those to bed, because it's very important to get the dining, off-street dining on the sidewalk areas. I wanted to go down and measure them. The snowstorm stopped me from doing that, but I really want to make sure that it will accommodate what the businesses want for outside dining. I like it. I'm sure a lot of other people like it. It really needs to fit. We can't redo it later.
Todd, can you remind us, what's the current width of the sidewalk as designed per the current plan with the one-way? Do you recall the width of the sidewalk?
Well, we're starting out with really 65 feet building to building.
Yep.
And from curb to curb, you've got, we would, under the one-way scenario, have a 15-foot shared use lane and then 8-foot parking lane. So doing the math, that would be 31 feet curb to curb.
So 15 feet.
Yes.
15 feet for the curbs
Yeah.
or for the sidewalks.
We're roughly 15 feet on both sides, right? Which would be a little bit wider on average than what's there now in that section.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
And we have people down in that area, in that section, that use the sidewalk alone for outdoor dining.
and that would enable you to remove the curbside dining from being in the parking lane to actually putting it up on the sidewalk area and still have the 5-foot sidewalk for people to walk through, and the frontage zone between the sidewalk and the storefronts for people to go in and out.
Well, I found there was a few unique areas that, I got to measure them, because it's showing a 17-foot sidewalk on each side and the roadway, which is a two-way roadway at that point beyond Ringerhoff Street. And I don't see it, but I'm sure you guys measured it, but there's a couple areas I really want to take a closer look at. But that being said, those things need in my mind to be clear before we proceed. That's just me. My opinion.
Are these things that will need to be added to the resolution before we vote, like a way to amend the resolution to include that in?
Well, my suggestion would be to table this. It's too quick. I want to see these things resolved. I'm a no vote right now. I'm not against anything that's there, but I want to have these things borne out, that we have a fallback to be able to change it. And, I'm sure it's not a big thing to get these assurances, but we need to have a plan that's going to work, whether this works out initially or not. In other words, it's a fallback position. It didn't work in the past. I have that in the back of my mind that it might not work here. I'm not saying we shouldn't try it. I'm saying.
There's some
we gotta
assurances
follow.
that there, I mean, like, I hear it, right? I'm not of the mindset of, well, it didn't work before, so don't do it at all. You know, I don't think that, you know. Be careful what I say here. I just don't see the need to say, hey, we want progress, but don't do it because it hasn't been done before, right? There are some assurances that we can look at in terms of future use and pattern of use of cars, for example, that we all know that people are not driving as often as they are, or as they were in the 80s and 90s. So reducing the amount of traffic or the amount of roadways is indicative of what our society is doing, considering that we're biking more and we're concerned about climate and all this other stuff. It's funny, I don't know where Steve went, but he was talking about how many people he saw walking on the sidewalk, but not how many people were driving by, right? So again, we look at what we're trying to focus on downtown. We are trying to get more people to come downtown, of course. We don't see a threat with the mall anymore, which is one of the things that we were aware of was a concern for one-way parking and making it more accessible downtown, making driving downtown more accessible. But we just don't see that threat for uptown as we did back then. 20 years down the line, maybe we all come back and we start driving again. But I think that's the concern that maybe you have, Councillor Moore, and maybe some other folks have of it didn't work before, so why is it going to work again? And what happens in the future if it does go to pot? I'm fine with tabling it. I don't want to keep kicking the can though, because fundamentally what this comes down to, council and everybody else, was 1903 infrastructure that we continue to see fail more often than not. And that is the whole point of this project. That's why we even started this project. And mind you, we started this conversation in August of last year, right? So let's table it. Let's come back. Let's get those questions answered, okay? And then we'll come up with some solution. But again, you shut the street down, you plan for a street shutdown versus don't plan for something and have the infrastructure fail. I'm not a doom and gloom legislator. You all know that. Sky's not falling, but we should be concerned because we're seeing increased infrastructure failures on Margaret Street. And if it fails, it's going to fail. And there is going to be no plan. There's not going to be a contingency. There's no structure for an unplanned failure of our water sewer infrastructure downtown, because that will shut down downtown. And we don't have a plan for that right now. So when we come back to it, let's answer these questions. Okay, I'm fine with that. Let's answer the questions, but let's figure this out, because we can't keep patching things together. Okay. And I appreciate the dialogue. I hear the concerns. I appreciate the dialogue. I appreciate the questions, Councillor Gibbs. All right. And I just think that we've got to really come to some agreement that it's got to get answered, and we've got to come to some consensus of moving forward. The other thing is let's be cautious with how we're expending resources to hire experts to inform us which direction we should go, and then turn around and say, I don't agree with that, or I don't believe that, or, you know, it's a pointless exercise to spend that money on these experts who have a lot more resources and knowledge and education than we do to help us make these decisions, and then turn around and say, no, actually, we don't agree with you. Like, we've got to put some trust in the process. And I'll tell you straight up, this process from day one has been out there. People have been included. The first meeting that we had was solely focused on business owners and downtown residents, and people who live, work, and play downtown. That was the sole focus of that first meeting.
Yeah, well, I will comment though that this final version of the 3 proposals didn't come out until just about 10 days ago. So yes, we were discussing all 3 proposals, but it wasn't finalized until recently.
When did the second survey go out?
It went out March 9th and it closed March 23rd.
So March 9th.
I didn't see that. I
And there
didn't.
was a public information meeting March 9th at the library.
Right.
I was there. I didn't
You were there.
hear that. Anyway.
All right.
But I
Yes.
don't think these are
Yeah.
insurmountable obstacles, but it really, really pays to measure twice and cut once. I mean, this is our downtown, it's our crown jewel.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that we do all the due diligence that we can to make sure that this project works
Okay.
in light of whatever happens.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to say that one of Councilor Moore's questions is answered in this study. The sidewalks are going to be 15 feet on either side or 15 and a half feet on either side. So there's your dining off the street.
Well,
that
yeah,
you're
but there's a
interested in.
4-foot buffer zone, so it's not fully all usable.
Yeah, but if you look at the study, you will see that there's plenty of room for outdoor dining. The other thing is that what are the 65 feet from storefront to storefront? So you got a limited amount of real estate and you can't have it all. If you want bigger sidewalks, you're gonna have smaller travel lanes. There's just no way around that.
Or no parking.
Or no parking. And from what I gathered from talking with Councillor Bob today and with the CNS folks is that the two things that stuck out most in the public's mind were parking and outdoor dining. So we can't have it all in 65 feet. We can have a lot. We can have one-way, driving lane and plenty of space for outdoor seating, outdoor dining, sitting on a bench and enjoying the birds singing, whatever you like to do outside. But we just can't have it all. We can't have 2 lanes of traffic, wider sidewalks, and parking on both sides of the street.
And keep people out of the street from eating.
Yes. And with this in mind, these constraints, the public is telling us we want to preserve the parking. We want more dining space. The only thing you can do at that point, the only option you have left is to reduce the traffic lane. So that's why I decided to become for this proposal. It's the only way to make it work. And I also noticed that our bicycling friends from Ward 5 are here tonight, and they helped us when we did the road diet on North Market Street. And everyone thought that was going to be a disaster, but it turned out to be a wonderful thing. And now many members of our community can bike from, Georgia Pacific all the way to the beach on a bike path, which is really, really nice. And I foresee the same thing for downtown. I'm especially excited about the Court Street and Brinkerhoff Street parts of this project, because there will be dedicated bike lanes on both of those streets, one coming into downtown, one going out, which is very exciting. And, that little section of Margaret there, I agree with Councillor Gibbs, it's tough to ride a bike there now, but it doesn't have to be. We can change that. So anyway, that's my thoughts on it.
Thank you.
Well, I respectfully disagree with that. There are ways around that. There's ways that it can be made better. So just saying.
When you got 65 feet, you can.
There are ways
Use it.
around it. I'm not going to get into a big discussion on that now. But yes, there are. I've looked at it. There are ways to get around it.
Okay.
So I'd like to make a motion to table.
Second.
Motion on the floor, table, second by Councillor
Talon.
Talon.
It's not Councillor Canales, just in case you're
What's
wondering.
wrong with me? Motion on the floor, table, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
1 in the negative, 4 in the positive. Items table.
Item 7.67, authorized A&G agreement for merchant processing services.
Motion by Councillor Bob, second by Councillor Kelly, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Item 7.68, approval of license agreement for Plattsburgh Farmers and Tractors Market.
Motion by Councillor Bob, second. Councillor Kelly, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Item 7.69, authorized KAS service agreements for various asbestos surveys.
Motion, Councillor Bob, second. Councillor Kelly, discussion. Roll call.
Counselor Kelly,
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs,
Yes.
Counselor Talon.
Yes.
Counselor Bob,
Yes.
Counselor Moore.
Yes.
Carried.
Item 7.70, adoption of policies and procedures manual for community development revolving loan fund.
Motion by Councillor Gibbs, second by Councillor Bob, discussion.
I'm really sorry, but with all of this, I did not get to this. I was actually hoping that I could make a motion to table this. I haven't had a chance to read this. I can't vote on it because I've been so consumed with Margaret Street. So I'm putting a motion to table it.
I'll second it.
Second by Councillor Bob.
Motion is tabled. Second by Bob. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Item 7.71, authorized consolidation of the economic development funds, community development fund.
Motion. Councillor Gibbs, second by Councillor Bob, discussion.
I had a question on what funds exactly are gonna be commingled? Wasn't clear on that.
Matt, can you answer that?
Yeah, currently there are 3 loan funds within the revolving loan fund program. One is for economic development revolving loan fund, one is for housing revolving loans, and the third is for facade loan funds. This resolution would consolidate all of that funding under the umbrella of the community development revolving loan fund, and all of the funding will be governed by the same set of rules. It simplifies administration and also marketing for the public.
Thanks.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, carried.
Item 7.72, authorized write-off of economic development funds, uncollectible loans, community development fund.
Motion by Councillor Gibbs, second by Councillor Bob, discussion.
In this situation, or in these situations, who loses the money on this? I mean,
It's
is it come out of the federal government's money, or does it come out of the city?
It's that fund, it's the fund that we loan out. Like we talked about consolidating those funds, it's monies in that fund that was provided to the city through either HCR, CDBG grants, things like that, that fund this economic development revolving loan fund. It's not general fund monies, it's not budgetary monies, it's monies that come out of this specific program that is funded through these types of programs.
So our fund will be short, whatever it is.
The fund is already short that amount. What we're doing is we're doing a cleanup that wasn't done before of writing off those bad debts that were incurred when in 2002 to 2007.
But it comes out of a revolving loan
It
fund?
has, yes, the monies have already come out of there. They just haven't been paid back into that revolving loan.
So do we have to pay it back?
No, it's done. It's done. Nobody pays it back. No, we don't owe that money, we don't owe that amount back to that fund. It's just whoever borrowed it didn't pay it back and we kind of closed the books on it. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Counselor Kelly,
Yeah.
Counselor Gibbs.
Yes.
Counselor Talon.
Yes.
Counselor Bob.
Yes.
Counselor Moore.
Yes.
Carried.
Item 7.73, authorized consulting agreement with Ann Russo Holland, complete rehabilitation of city's revolving loan fund.
Motion, Councillor Bob, second. Councillor Kelly, discussion. Roll call.
Counselor Kelly,
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs,
Yes.
Counselor Talon.
Yes.
Counselor Bob.
Yes.
Counselor Moore.
Yes.
Carried.
Item 7.74, adopt updated city field use policy.
I'm gonna make a motion to withdraw this item. I'd like to come back and have a different conversation or more conversations about the field use. The policy on the table is a change to the charge per use of the field. It is nothing else in the policy has changed other than a $10 field use, $10 field use charge per use. We'll just come back and have a different conversation about it. So I'd like to make a motion to withdraw.
I'll second it.
Second, Councillor Gibbs, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, items withdrawn.
7.75, authorizing revising capital project H5110.81, 2021 parking equipment purchase.
Motion, Councillor Bob, second, Councillor Kelly, discussion. Roll call.
Counselor Kelly,
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs,
No.
Counselor Talon,
Yes.
Counselor Bob,
Yes.
Counselor Moore.
yes,
Carried.
Item 7.76, amendment number 2 to parking kiosk purchase and service agreement.
Motion, Councillor Bob, second. Councillor Kelly, discussion. Roll call.
Counselor Kelly,
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs,
No.
Counselor Talon,
Yes.
Counselor Bob,
Yes.
Counselor Moore.
yes,
Carried.
Item 7.77, approval of 2022 Police Academy Director Training Director Services.
Motion. Councillor Kelly, second by Councillor Bob, discussion.
Yes, I had some questions.
Sure.
It has to do with the funding.
Yep.
So 7.77 and 7.8.
7, 7, and 7.
Yes, those are the police
8,
department.
yes.
Yeah. How are those being paid?
Well, let's postpone the discussion for 7, 8 to just for the organizational piece of it. For 7, 8, 7, 7 would come out of, most likely be a transfer out of regular payroll. There is room in regular payroll to fund this additional $10,000 paid to Ron for his services. to
Oh, this
direct
is
the
for Ron
academy.
Santor.
Yep.
I'm looking at the wrong one.
Okay,
Okay, I'm sorry.
no, you're fine. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Counselor Kelly,
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs,
Yes.
Counselor Talon,
Yes.
Counselor Bob,
Yes.
Counselor Moore.
yes,
Carried.
Item 7.78, authorized various travel requests, police department.
Motion, Councillor Bob, second by Councillor Gibbs, discussion.
This is the one I have questions.
This
Sorry.
comes out of there's funded in the training account. There's already funding in the training account, so that's where it comes from.
Why isn't it being taken out of asset forfeiture? I thought trainings were usually taken out of asset.
I
forfeiture.
think it depends. I think it depends on what kind of training. I'd have to double check. Sometimes there is funds in there for this type of training, or it can be transferred back as a payback into that the training account or any account that where asset forfeiture is appropriate to be spent.
What is the, what's the training?
Pardon?
What is the training?
It's listed.
I know it's in the resolution. I don't have my finger on it.
Department of Criminal Justice response to mass casualties or mass shooting. There's a taser course, and then there's a reality-based training or instruction for somebody to go down. It's more role play, better term for it, but it is role play training that they then come back and do training at the academy. These folks do train at the academy, or they're instructors at the academy. So they do take that information as a training and bring it back to train at the academy.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Counselor Kelly,
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs,
Yes.
Counselor Talon,
Yes.
Counselor Bob,
Yes.
Counselor Moore.
yes,
Carried.
Item 7.79, approve the following resolution with exhibit authorizing among other things the subdivisions of tax map parcel number 207.20-7-15 for the RMS survey to facilitate the construction of the Saranac River Walk to extend to the Saranac River Trail and best utilize DRI grant funding.
Motion by Councillor Bob, second, Councillor Kelly, discussion.
Can we get an explanation on this? Can we get an explanation?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I was like, who's over there?
I thought Matt would come to the microphone. so.
No, this is pretty straightforward. This is the subdivision of the Riverwalk so that we can take advantage of DRI funds to start developing the Riverwalk. Pulling it to connect with the end of the Saranac River Trail Phase 2, and then to begin the work of extending it back to Saranac River Trail Phase 3, which will then extend from the end of Veterans Bridge to Green Street and then around to Peace Point Park,
Okay.
among other things. Any further discussion? All in favor? Roll call.
Counselor Kelly,
Yes.
Counselor Gibbs,
Yes.
Counselor Talon,
Yes.
Counselor Bob,
Yes.
Counselor Moore.
yes,
Carried.
Item 7.80, authorized Chamberlain to issue check RE index number 2021-20954.
Motion by Councillor Gibbs, second. Councillor Bob, discussion.
Yes. Can we get an explanation on this?
This was a part of the judgment. Excuse me, part of the judgment made by Judge Ellis that there were components of a foil that were not responded to correctly by the city of Plattsburgh. And the remuneration was to pay lawyer fees due to the judgment.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Council Kelly,
Yes.
Council Gibbs,
Yes,
Council Talon.
Yes.
Council Bob,
Yes,
Council Moore.
Yes,
Carried.
Item 7.81, authorized budget transfer, general fund judgments and claims.
Motion. Counselor Gibbs, second by Counselor Bob, discussion. Roll call.
Council Kelly,
Yes.
Council Gibbs,
yes,
Council Talon.
Yes.
Council Bob,
yes,
Council Moore.
yes,
Carried.
Item 7.82, approval to create the City of Plattsburgh Climate Task Force.
Motion by Counselor Gibbs, second by Counselor Bob. Discussion.
I'm very excited about this. So thank you, Mayor, for your support. Thank you, Rochelle, for doing a ton of work on this. And very excited about bringing this back, moving forward.
And thank you for the opportunity.
yeah, this is great. Glad to see this happening.
Yeah, certainly appreciate it. I think the timeliness is apropos to a fantastic Earth Day celebration that we're having. Counselor Gibbs, I sincerely appreciate your willingness to bring this forward in partnership with community members and the office. And then the 13 members who 11 members minus our counselors up here, really appreciate it. Rochelle, I can't speak more higher accolades to your ability to diffuse and gather people together. I appreciate this, okay? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Item 7.83, adopt City of Plattsburgh green fleet and equipment policy.
Motion, Counselor Gibbs, second by Counselor Bob. Discussion.
So this is going to be one of those actions that gives us credit as soon as we get our community registered with New York State. It'll be very exciting.
Any further discussion? Roll call.
Council Kelly,
Yes.
Council Gibbs,
Yes,
Council Talon.
Yes.
Council Bob,
Yes,
Council Moore.
yes.
There's no need for executive session this evening. Is there any new business coming before this council? Seeing none, I will now take a motion. I'll now entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Counselor Bob, second by Counselor Gibbs. All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are now adjourned.